What's good? It's Woog. Is Dalton Smith for real? Look, Dalton Smith just stopped Jose Zepeda within 5 rounds in the 5th round with a vicious body shot. I thought that he showed great instinct in going for that right hand to the body when he saw Jose Zepeda instinctively cover up, because Jose Zepeda was increasingly getting tagged in the 3rd and 4th rounds going into the 5th round. But man, if people had doubts on Dalton Smith, which, I mean, there's always that skepticism when somebody's coming out of like the regional scene and kind of fighting people, for lesser titles, and then starts fighting, former champs, or, in this case, a 3-time former title challenger, and somebody who, just 1 year ago was ranked like number 4 in the division. Well, at least right before the stoppage loss to Regis Prograis. Jose Zepeda was like right there. This is right before Devin Haney went up, right before Teofimo Lopez. But Dalton Smith just had a very impressive performance. And we'll talk a little bit about what this means for Jose Zepeda. But I'm going to make a declaration really quickly and let me know if I'm way off on this. In terms of English fighters, so I'm talking solely England, which Dalton Smith is from Sheffield, England. I think that Dalton Smith is the most impressive fighter that I've seen from England in terms of just what the toolbox shows, like the speed, the power, the IQ, the instincts. Let me know if I'm off on this. And again, I'm just England, not Scotland or Wales. But from 135 to 147, so from lightweight to welterweight, Dalton Smith to me is looking like the most impressive fighter out of England, maybe since Kell Brook, who fought one division up. I'm not saying that Dalton Smith is as good as Kell Brook. I'm not saying he's ever going to win a world title. But in terms of the tools that I'm seeing and how he's putting his skill set and his talent together, I think that he might be the most impressive English fighter from 135 to 147 since Kell Brook. Again, let me know if I'm leaving somebody out. And notice I left out Scotland because Josh Taylor was obviously very impressive in the same division. But yeah, that would include Jack Catterall, who I think is a really good fighter. And that would also include Luke Campbell. But what did we see? Like, the question was, we suspected that Jose Zepeda was over the hill, right? This is the guy who for a long time had only really lost in an injury via injury to Terry Flanagan for a vacant lightweight belt several years ago, and then lost a super close disputed decision against Jose Ramirez, just before the pandemic, basically. And around that time, I feel like Jose Zepeda started peaking. He won like his next 6 fights, and then he lost to Regis Prograis in that 11th round title stoppage. And then he came back for a lesser fight, and then he lost again via wide decision to Richardson Hitchens. And I feel like at that point, even though Richardson Hitchens is a very different matchup style than Dalton Smith, I feel like that fight had a lot of people kind of cooling on Jose Zepeda. Like, okay, maybe he's a diminished version of himself now. When you couple that wide decision loss with the stoppage loss against Regis Prograis, who at the time, before losing to Devin Haney, was looked at as at least top 2-ish fighter in the division. So this was a step-up fight for Dalton Smith. And in the first couple of rounds, I thought Jose Zepeda was looking pretty good. I thought that his right jab, he's a southpaw, I thought that his right jab was, getting Dalton Smith's attention. I thought that, those winging, left hands. And, Zepeda, I feel like used to shoot his shots a little bit straighter. It seemed like there were a lot of wide power punches against Dalton Smith, but those punches were looking pretty threatening. A couple of them made some good contact, and his timing seemed pretty good in those first couple rounds, at least. So Dalton Smith was the one who was kind of backing up a little bit. Jose Zepeda was sort of leading the dance in a way. Dalton Smith was patient, wasn't really letting his right hand go, which that's kind of his money shot. He loves throwing that right hand, and he sets it up with all kinds of tricks. He'll throw different feints. He'll waste the left hand to the body. He'll kind of just throw it low really quickly, then come over the top. And he has different styles of right hands. He's got a straight right hand. He's got a looping, wider right hand. He can also throw the right hand as a I'm coming at you lead, and he could throw the right hand as a counter. So Jose Zepeda, I thought, was looking good in the first couple of rounds. I thought that he won the first couple of rounds. But you saw what Dalton Smith was trying to do. He started trying to time Jose Zepeda first with a check left hook. Like, he'll throw a quick, sneaky hook. But Zepeda, at least in those first couple of rounds, was coming in at an angle. So his head would be a little off to the side, dip to an angle where Dalton Smith would miss with that quick check left hook. But he was also countering Zepeda with the straight right after the first round and a half or so. And he landed a nice little combination towards the end of the second round. But after the second round, it was pretty much all Dalton Smith. You saw Zepeda become less confident. You saw him start throwing his power punches less. I mean, he had like one good ambush after the first 2 rounds, and that was pretty much Zepeda's only other moment. Again, it was one ambush. I think it might have been it was either in the third or the fourth round, but he came in kind of hot, threw like 3 to 4 punches. Dalton Smith kind of turned away a little bit, and Zepeda was on him. But that was like the last successful ambush. And what I was concerned about on the Zepeda side was after the first few rounds, I didn't think it was going to be as quick as like turning the tide in the third round. But I thought that Zepeda's legs would naturally tire. Like, he's in his mid-30s, but in fight age, I feel like he's a little bit older because he's fought a lot of the best fighters. Again, Jose Ramirez, Regis Prograis. He beat Jose Pedraza. He had that fight of the year against Ivan Baranchyk where they were just trading knockdowns through the first few rounds. I suspected that whatever success Zepeda was having earlier in movement, especially because it can't go over or under, but overstated how important legs are in boxing. It sounds like a good concept, and it sounds like something that people kind of act like they understand, but you really have to grasp what it means when your legs are starting to get tired and when your foot movement and foot placement isn't as precise and crisp. It's like a trickle down effect where if you start losing your legs, that means that you're also losing like your lower back, your ability to dip, your ability to avoid punches, sometimes with your upper body, because as you age, your lower back also starts to tighten. So Jose Zepeda, to me, wasn't nearly as elusive, and he wasn't nearly as bouncy and explosive when he would come in for the ambush, again, after the first 2 rounds. So by the third and fourth round, I'm looking at this like, this is really looking worse and worse for Zepeda. And then he started getting like hit with some cleaner shots. Like, he started getting backed up more. He was still kind of coming forward, but it looked like a hollow threat after a while. And again, that while didn't take long. It was only after the first 2 rounds. So Dalton Smith started leading the dance, started feinting a lot more, started kind of getting Zepeda to react. He would feint, throw something else, and then Zepeda would take a step back or would circle out. But it was more looking like Zepeda, who in the first round or 2, the hunter, became the hunted after the first couple. And you started hearing the crowd start getting increasingly excited. You know, the hometown for Dalton Smith, Sheffield, right? The Sheffield crowd started becoming more animated. By the way, Kell Brook was also from Sheffield, or is also from Sheffield. But you also started seeing Dalton Smith start, throwing a couple punches at a time, then kind of moving off at an angle where the slower legs of Zepeda would then react and kind of move to then again face him. Well, in one of these interactions in the 5th round, Dalton Smith let a couple of punches go. He got Zepeda's attention. He kind of turned Zepeda. Zepeda was covering up because he thought that Dalton Smith, like he had for the last couple rounds, was going to piece him up with another couple punches up top. Zepeda goes here. Dalton Smith takes that millisecond opportunity, recognizes it, sees that Zepeda is totally unguarded and vulnerable to the belly area. Dalton Smith throws his right hand and he kind of put his body into it. Boom, catches him with kind of like it wasn't a straight down punch. It was almost like his glove was kind of to the side, like a half hook, half uppercut, but it was perfectly placed to the belly, caught him super cleanly. And again, Zepeda was right here, totally vulnerable to the body. Smith caught him. Zepeda took a second to react, went down first to one knee, then to two knees, then to two knees and two gloves, then to two knees and two elbows. It was all bad. Like, it became increasingly clear. I think that they called it on the commentary. Zepeda is in big trouble here because you just saw him slowly start to crumble, where it was almost like the recognition of the pain just started to increase the longer Zepeda was down. So yeah, he did not get up. This was a knockout win for Dalton Smith. Electrifying performance. Like, he's showing that he's got a lot of the goods. And Zepeda, in fact, I think that he is probably... Retirement should be in the discussion, I feel, not only because of the body shot. Sometimes people just get clipped, but it's like, why did you get clipped, right? Like, how did you get clipped? You got clipped because you weren't any longer able to keep up with Dalton Smith, with his speed, with his movement, with his sharpness, with his accuracy, with his reflexes, all of that. Zepeda, after the first couple of rounds, wasn't able to keep up, which is why he found himself vulnerable. So even if it wasn't that body shot, when you're watching the third, then the fourth round, you're thinking, man, any success that Zepeda was having, like, he's not able to do anything well at this point. And he didn't look like a totally shot fighter, but he was just reduced and diminished enough to where in all of the key elements, Dalton Smith was taking control. Dalton Smith was winning, the jab battle, the foot placement battle. He was winning all of those little battles that could have big ripple effects down the line. So just the fact that it took only 2 rounds for Zepeda to start looking like an older fighter, that might be it. It's not like this was like a super even fight that stayed competitive until the time of the knockout. No, it looked like, okay, Dalton Smith wins the third round. Dalton Smith wins the fourth round. It looks like Dalton Smith is clearly on his way to winning the 5th round. Body shot, drop, stop. So it was looking like winter is coming for Jose Zepeda. So impressive win for Dalton Smith. I do think that he caught Zepeda at the right time or the wrong time for Jose Zepeda. But Dalton Smith's call out after the fight, it was Adam Azim, who's another, he's a young prospect. He's much younger than Dalton Smith. Like, Dalton Smith's about 27. Adam Azim is like 21 years old, but he's getting some hype. I'm just thinking, like, I feel like Dalton Smith, unless there's some like regional beef that has to be like hashed out, and if there's like a public appetite between Slough, England and Sheffield, England, that it has to happen. Adam Azim, I mean, he's looking pretty good. He's only got 11 fights under his belt, 8 knockouts, but he's fighting very just lower tier competition, like nobody with like a Wikipedia page, right? So I feel like Dalton Smith is more advanced, unless you want to just fight Adam Azim now because you don't want to fight him in like 3 years. Say Adam Azim gets better and better. Maybe now's the time. Maybe that's a win that Dalton Smith feels will age well. If anybody, from the UK knows anything about like a beef between these guys or a reason why this fight would make sense for Dalton Smith, let me know in the comments. But I'm almost thinking, after this performance, again, stopping somebody who a year to a year and a half ago was a top 5 guy at junior welterweight, I'm kind of seeing Dalton Smith as being like maybe entering the top 10. Like, do you put him above Sandor Martin after that win? I don't know. I'm not saying that you do, but this is what I would consider. Right now, Gary Antoine Russell, according to Ring, is listed at 9. Now, I think he's super talented. I just think he's been inactive and lately inactive because of PBC kind of getting their stuff together with this new Amazon deal. But I just hate seeing a career like Gary Antoine Russell's, a young career, kind of languishing at the moment. But yeah, Dalton Smith, he's been super active. He's increasingly stepping up. Like before this one, it was Sam Maxwell, which at the time was another seemingly step up fight. So Sam Maxwell to Jose Zepeda. I think that he might be a top 10-ish 140 guy right now. So, I mean, who would you like to see Dalton Smith fighter? I'm not saying put him in there with Subriel Matias, who is also on DAZN right now, right? I'm not saying put him in there with Devin Haney or Teofimo Lopez. I'm thinking maybe since Regis Prograis got dominated so badly against Devin Haney, maybe you do Dalton Smith, Regis Prograis, or Regis Prograis versus however Eddie Hearn and Matchroom want to dress that one up. I would think that Prograis still gets the A side. Maybe Prograis goes out to the UK, and that would also be a pretty good opportunity for Prograis to really get back in the mix, fight this 27-year-old, up and comer, especially if guys like Jose Ramirez haven't shown any willingness to want to fight any of the top guys. That's at least how it seems to me. But Jose Ramirez right now is on Golden Boy. He left Top Rank. So I don't know if Dalton Smith is ready for a Jose Ramirez. Regis Prograis, let me know who you would want to see Dalton Smith fight. I'd say stay away from Richardson Hitchens. Just style wise, I feel like Hitchens is really bad for a lot of people at 140 right now. Maybe you do Dalton Smith, Arnold Barboza. Arnold Barboza has been having difficulty getting a super meaningful fight. Like he did fight Jose Pedraza, but Barboza is I think he's like the alternative or backup if Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia falls apart. But Barboza is on Golden Boy, right? So they're both DAZN fighters. Is it too early for Dalton Smith to take on Arnold Barboza? But yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know your thoughts on Dalton Smith's performance and where you see him talent-wise. Do you think he's a hype job? Do you think he's for real? Again, I think that he might be the most kind of just eye-catching English fighter from 135 to 147 in that lightweight to welterweight. Dalton Smith's at 140. In that range, most eye-catchingly talented fighter since Kell Brook. But let me know if I'm leaving somebody out. And again, that's just England, not Scotland and so forth. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.